From Isolation Studios, it's Richard Crouse.
Welcome, everybody, to Isolation Studios. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope that you're all finally listening to your parents who all those years ago told you to wash your hands and don't touch your face. It was good advice then. It's really good advice these days. Also, I want to thank everybody who tuned in to the last In Isolation with ... Julie Eng. She is a magician who was fascinating, talking about what happens during a pandemic when you have an entire year of shows planned and then they all evaporate in one day. And she did a trick for us. It's really cool. So if you haven't seen that, you can find it on YouTube or go to my website, richardcrouse.ca, and you can find it there. First, though, I wanted to talk about this. I've been hearing from people who tell me that they're finding self-isolation very difficult, that they perhaps aren't working, they don't have money coming in, there's too many hours in the day to fill. And I want to tell those people, I hear you, I feel what you're going through. I have felt all those things in the last month or so that I've been here. And it hit me just like a ton of bricks. And I think this might be one of the compounding factors, the reason that we're all feeling perhaps a little odd these days, a little odder than usual given the circumstances. But it hit me the other day that I haven't actually touched another person other than my wife for a month. I haven't had a conversation longer than, yes, I'll pay with my debit card and yeah, I'll pack my own bag, person to person, in over a month with anyone. Now, I've been Zooming with people and talking to you through this, but I haven't actually had that personal interaction. And you know, that is something I think that's so important to us. So yesterday, I had the radio on. I was thinking about this and I was starting to feel a little down about the whole situation. I had the radio on and I got inspiration from, of all things, a Traveling Wilburys song. One line from their song, End of the Road. Every day is just one day. It cheered me up. And, you know, if I'm having a bad day or if I'm feeling crushed by just the weight of all this pandemic news, I'll remind myself that every day is just one day. It can get better tomorrow. And all of that reminded me of a quote. I had to look this up. It's from Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls. Today is only one day in all the days that will ever be, but what will happen in all the other days that ever come can depend on what you do today. So every day is important in this fight against COVID-19, but it is important to remember that by taking this one day at a time, we can beat it. Every day is just one day. Now let's meet Timothy Caulfield. He's a Canadian professor of law at the University of Alberta, the research director of its Health Law Institute, and current Canada Research Chair in Health Law and Policy. His next book, Relax, Dammit, will be out on December 1st, but its message is very timely for today. Let's get to know Timothy Caulfield. Tim, thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me on, Richard. Really looking forward to this.
Well, welcome to Isolation Studios. This is it. This is what it looks like when you're in isolation, looking for things to do. So you're in Alberta right now. What's the situation there? When you look out the window, what do you see there?
I actually see snow and I see trees. It's still snow out here. So it's weird because is that good or is that bad, right? Because, some people say, well, it's good because then I don't feel like going outside, makes isolation feel kind of cozy. But it also just adds to, I think, a little bit of that gloom. But, I think Albertans are doing, if I may say, a great job of, the few times I have been outside, social isolation being taken very seriously.
Oh, good. And so people are wearing masks, they're social distancing, they're doing all the stuff we're being told to do?
That's definitely the impression that I'm getting when the few times, and to be honest with you, Richard, it's only been a few times over the past month that I've even been out at all. My wife is a family doc, so she's out. She's right there experiencing it.
How is she doing?
She's doing good. She's tough, but she is finding this pretty stressful. And part of it's the uncertainty and the questions and the changing guidelines, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, I would guess, and I don't want you to speak for her, but I would guess that patients are asking her questions that she quite simply just can't say definitively, this is what will happen, because it is such a moving line all the time. We're hearing different things every single day.
Yeah, and the masks are a really good example of that, right? We were out, she was making a mask last night, actually. And it's a really good example of how the science evolves. And in my own work, I find it fascinating because people view that as, they're frustrated by that. And they almost think, well, I can't trust the public health authorities because they can't make up their mind. On the contrary, it's exactly what you want them to do, right? You want them to move with the science. You want them to evolve. You want them to be nimble, especially at a time that is so uncertain, like right now.
Well, now your book, I think, is perfectly timed for right now, except no one can buy it at this second. Soon, they will release. Now, it was supposed to be out now already. It hasn't come out yet. Do you have a date when it will come out?
I do. It's coming out December 1st. And, it is a little bit of I want it out. It's so relevant on the one hand. On the other hand, it's a really tough time. You're an author. An author. It's a really tough time to be selling a book. And Penguin has been amazing. Penguin Random House has really been incredibly supportive. But it's a tough time. I have, I'm sure you do. I have friends who are authors and they're pushing books now, and it's not easy. Everyone get out there and support an author who has a book out right now, because
absolutely, it's a great time to order books. You've got certainly more than enough time to read. I do anyway. There's only so much cleaning I can do. There's only so much of the organizing. This place is so, it doesn't maybe look like it from the bookshelf behind me, but it is organized and here within an inch of its life.
It is. I got to be honest with you, Richard. I've been crazy busy. Crazy. I keep waiting for that boredom that everyone is talking about, because my day job is kind of fighting misinformation,
right.
And we're right now at sort of the epicenter of misinformation.
Let's talk about that then. So we have been given, I guess, some misinformation. If you look on social media, you look on Twitter, you look out in the world, everyone seems to think if you drink pomegranate juice, then you'll be cured. If you drink a glass of water every 15 minutes, you won't get the COVID-19. Where do these wild ideas come from, and how do you fight back against misinformation like that?
We're studying this, and my answers are not going to surprise you. They're coming from absolutely everywhere. They're coming from world leaders. We've seen that. They're coming from celebrities. The 5G myth. Have you heard this one? Yep. The emerging 5G technology is causing. Are making coronavirus worse. That celebs have helped to spread that misinformation. So we have that one. But a lot of it. There was an interesting study out of Oxford just over the last couple of days that found, again, no surprise, that a lot of it's social media and it's a lot of the general public sharing this misinformation. Right. So one of the ways you can fight this is, don't share. Think before you share. Use that critical thinking. Is there evidence to back this up? What is the source of this information? There's a really cool study, actually. One of our collaborators, Gordon Pennycook, who's in Saskatchewan, did a study. It sounds ridiculously simple, Richard, but it really works. If you can teach people just to pause before they share, because social media is this frantic medium, right? And it doesn't want you to pause. It wants you to be constantly moving. If we can just get people to pause before they share, it can have a real impact on the spread of misinformation. And in their study, they found, and this is sort of the good news part of the story, and it lines up with other research that's been done. They found that people want to be accurate. There's always this idea that there's this malevolent force out there spreading. People want to be accurate, and they're capable generally of being accurate. So it's just really trying to nudge them to pause. And we're all guilty of it, right? You see a story about the Tiger King, you're going to spread that story.
Well, we are all guilty of it, and I think that there's two things, and you're the expert here, but I'll throw out what I think are the two motivators behind this. One is hope. In a situation like this, where the guidelines seem to shift all the time, and things seem to be changing all the time, people want something to hang on to and go, this is the hopeful news. Pomegranate juice will work. We know where it's coming from, all that kind of stuff. And then the other part of it, I think, are conspiracy theories. People in times of great confusion, when it's chaos everywhere, when people don't quite understand the world the way that they usually do, their minds look to make connections, and they want to see things in a linear way. And that's where apparently conspiracy theories come from, is a way of trying to figure out things that make sense, like pieces of a puzzle that all fit together.
Yeah, I think that conspiracy thing is really important. And it sounds like you know this. There's empirical data to back up exactly what you said. In times of uncertainty, we want the narrative to be full. We want to have a story that we can wrap our arms around, that makes sense to us and sort of aligns with our particular ideology, our worldview, right? And so that's why you can see those conspiracy theories kind of line up with those kind of worldviews. But you're absolutely right. People want that full story. And so often, unfortunately, the truth, or the science-based truth, has gaps in it. Mm-hmm. And that leaves people unsatisfied, and so they seek to fill in those gaps. So I think you're absolutely right about that. And then your first point, the hope one, I think you're right. And an added part of that is people want to feel like they're doing something, right? They want to feel like they're doing something. So I have a friend, Alan Levinovitz. He's actually a religious scholar, and he does really cool work on alternative therapies. What draws people to this? The concept of natural. And he says exactly that, and that people like ritual, mm-hmm. So people may know that supplements don't work. They may know that their facial cream isn't really getting rid of their wrinkles, but they like that ritual. It gives them comfort. And I think we're seeing a lot of that today, right now, in this situation.
Absolutely. It's a way of managing stress. It's one of the ways, anyway, of managing stress. And that's what a lot of this book is. And we're not going to plug the book too much, although here it is. Look for it on December 1st when it comes out.
Please.
But you talk about managing stress a great deal. And I know from the conversations that I've had with people via Zoom, I haven't seen anyone other than, a checkout person, a cashier at a grocery store behind plexiglass, or my wife for a month now, face to face. But the conversations that I'm having with people and what I'm seeing online suggest that there's this underlying anxiety that we're feeling just because of the uncertainty, just because we don't understand exactly what's going on. And the flattening the curve seems like it's working, but we don't know for sure. And there's so much uncertainty that it's giving us all anxiety. How do you think that we can manage that sort of anxiety in a situation like this, which is, and here's the word that everyone's using, unprecedented?
Yeah, you're right. A lot of the things I talk about in the book are, first, I also talk about the fact that we kind of live in a fear culture right now. So much of the marketing that goes around products and ideologies are rooted in fear, right? And, that's problematic. So I try to highlight that reality. The other reality, we're all terrible at assessing risk. I'm terrible, Richard, you're terrible. We're all terrible at it. And so to kind of remind people of that, and there's a little bit of evidence that works, right? So, and this time, this unprecedented time that we're in right now, is a great example of how difficult it is to assess risk. And it's also a great example of the challenge of good science communication. Because on the one hand, this is a true international crisis that's going to cause people to lose their life. And we've seen it already, right? And this is a true international crisis. And you want to communicate to the world that reality. You want to communicate to the world that reality. And you want people to take action. You want social distancing. You want people to wash their hands. You want people to act responsibly when they have these symptoms. So you really want this serious message to get out there. But on the other hand, if you are in a low-risk group, if you're not one of the vulnerable populations, immunocompromised, an elderly individual, the risk to you should be viewed kind of in a realistic manner. And what so many of your actions, including wearing a mask, if that's what the data says, is really for other people. It's a community action, right? So I think that's one way to help manage the stress. I'm doing this for my community. Let's think of it that way, and for my loved ones. So really trying to focus on what matters, as opposed to this this amorphous angst that's coming at us all of the time from every direction. And that's one of the things I really try to do in the book, is really talk about, because some people will say to me, relax, damn it, how can you tell us to do that now? It seems like we should be doing the exact opposite, panic, damn it. But the idea is that, and there's some other scholars who have said this, one of the reasons you want people to recognize the actual state of the world is it allows them to focus on what really matters and what's really going to make a difference.
Well, see, that's the positive spin, if there is one, that you can put on all of this, is that we've seen some really great things happen. We have seen film companies step up and make movies free. Focus Features is doing free Mondays on Facebook, and they're showing great movies and doing Q&As with the actors and that kind of thing that you can interact with. There's lots of stuff that's happening that seems to me to be people going above and beyond, doing things that we've never done before, simply because it's the right thing to do, simply because it's good, simply because it will help people in a way. And so when all this is said and done, and it will be all said and done at some point, we don't know when, but I'm knocking wood that it will be, I hope that we can hang on to this idea that we are all linked, that this age of the individual that we live in so often now, with our angry tweets online when we hide behind our keyboards, that we begin to really assess what our part is in the community and how we can make our communities, big and small, better. That's my hope. Maybe it's Pollyanna-ish, I don't know, but that's what I hope comes out of all of this.
I agree with you so much, Richard, and we're seeing it also in the scientific community. We're seeing these wonderful collaborations happen like overnight, right? Happen overnight. This is an important topic. Let's get together and work on it. The other thing I hope from the legacy, one of the legacies, is this recognition of the value of good communication and the value of good science, but also an understanding of the problems of misinformation. So I'm hoping those are the kinds of legacies that we're going to have as a result of this. And that people take these issues really seriously.
Do you think that when all this is done, that there will be a broader appreciation for the scientific approach? Because we seem to, as we've probably talked about this when you're on my radio show, there's been an erosion of trust in science for whatever reason it might be. I'm not going to sit here and try and explain why that happened, because I don't really know. I believe in science, and particularly now. Do you hope that when all this is over, and do you think that people will start or go back to the idea that science is our friend and not some mysterious thing that we have to fear?
Well, I'll start with the hope first. I hope so. I've already seen, now whether this is going to endure, I don't know, but I've already seen that kind of commentary emerge. Not just on social media, but more broadly. There has been, and we've talked about this before, there has been this, what I think, unacceptable toleration of pseudoscience and unproven therapies. It's endemic. It's absolutely everywhere. The wellness industry, which is worth over or close to $5 trillion, is mostly based on no evidence, right? It's mostly useless stuff. Think about that. Humans are spending $5 trillion on stuff that doesn't work. And those supplements didn't work before the pandemic. They don't work now, and they're not going to work after the pandemic.
Right.
So it's a little bit conceptually inconsistent how everyone is now saying, look, chiropractic adjustments do not boost your immune system. IV vitamin therapy is not necessary. Don't do it. Homeopathy doesn't work. They're saying that now, when I hope they'll continue to say that after, and we're really going to recognize the profound harm that an embrace of magical thinking can have, not just on individuals, but on the community.
It's
So
just
hopefully.
exactly that kind of comment that made you Gwyneth Paltrow's nemesis.
So,
Are you still Gwyneth Paltrow's nemesis?
I hear I am. I hear rumors. I hear rumors. And again, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I always say our show was on Netflix, and then her show went on, and ours came off. Do the math.
Yeah,
Do the math.
Other than this pandemic, which seems to be all that any of us can really think about, how did we all become stress bots? How did it all happen? Do you think that we let stress into our lives? Now, I think it's been amplified in the last month or so, but before that, I mean, the level of anxiety that people feel now, generally speaking, I think is higher than I can ever remember it being in my lifetime, anyway.
I think one of the things I argue in the book is that we're kind of wired as human beings to we have a negativity bias, right? It's evolutionarily wired into us. We remember negative things better. We respond to negative things better, and both social media and the popular press recognize that. And there's actual studies that show that negative news gets more traction. Negative headlines get more traction. Negative social media gets more traction. Things that are based on fear and negativity get more traction, and we remember it. We remember it better, and there's evidence to back that up. So we have this already kind of built-in negativity bias. There's a great study that showed what do people search on the internet about dying, how we die. What do people actually die of, right? And what is covered in the popular press. And you know the answer to this, right? The popular press makes it look like it's terrorism, murder, all these crazy things.
And then by a shark.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's this really, really strong availability bias. And it's playing out a little bit right now, too. Something is dramatic. If something is exciting and grotesque, we're more likely to remember it and more likely to be fearful of it. So that's also a big factor why there's so much stress, because now we have social media that's putting this in our face all of the time, and you have some networks like Fox News that's their mandate, right, is fear. So I think that is part of it. One of my favorite examples, Richard, is crime. If there have been studies done both in the United States and Canada, if you go out in the street and you ask people, they think crime has never been this bad, right? When in fact, it's at an almost all-time low. Now, this is particularly in the United States, where they have about 70% of the population think crime is worse now than 20 years ago. And it's almost at an all-time low. But that perception and that belief, think about it, it has an impact on how you vote, has an impact on how you treat your neighbors. It has an impact on the security that you have in your house. It has an impact on whether you let your kids walk to school. Just that one misperception of that is really a fear perception can have a huge impact on our lives. And that is for sure the availability bias playing out, pop culture playing out, etc. So just a couple examples.
Tim, thank you so much for this. I hope that we can get together again without all this stuff in the way in early December when Relax, Dammit, a user's guide to the age of anxiety comes out.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. I look forward to it.
And stay healthy. Don't wash your hands. Don't touch your face.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Richard.
Thanks so much.
That was the great Tim Caulfield. You can find his book, Relax, Dammit, a user's guide to the age of anxiety, wherever you buy fine books, and probably wherever you buy not so fine books too. Maybe by December 1st, we'll be actually able to go into a bookstore again. If not, look for it online. Before I go, I wanted to do another couple of shout outs here. So like so many people, I've been spending a lot of time on social media just to kind of fill the minutes of the day. And I'm looking for stuff that uplifts me, that makes me feel a little better. And I have to say, this made me pretty happy. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a huge David Bowie fan. And so when I came across this picture from the Twitter account of Tony Visconti, the man, I guess, most famous for producing so many David Bowie albums, including the first couple and the last couple. They worked together for decades. He posted this picture. It's him wearing a mask with David Bowie on it. and it's a fantastic shot. It made me happy. What made me even happier, though, was discovering that Kingy Carpenter, the proprietor of Peach Berserk, was making masks. And she is a fabric designer, a silk screenist, and she has a website. Again, have a look down at the bottom of your screen here, peachberserk.ca. She's making masks that are high fashion, that are really cool, and will protect you and everyone around you during this time of COVID-19. And I was very thrilled to find out that she had a David Bowie mask. So I don't have it yet. I've ordered it. It's on the way. I'll show it to you on a future episode of In Isolation with what it looks like when you get to wear David Bowie on your face. It's a strange time. Let's take the small pleasures where we can. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Stay safe. Wash your hands.